December 9th. It is December 9th. We're here at our Whatcom County Forest Resilience Task Force meeting just after 11 a.m. Go ahead and call the meeting to order and establish a roll call and quorum. Kate, do you want to do roll call? Just take stock of who's here.
Sure. How do you usually do that, Chris?
Oh, I just didn't know if you had a list of membership. We just go in the room. Chief, you want to go ahead? We'll just go around this way.
Yeah, Steve Harrell.
Steve.
Russ Fletcher Hoyt.
Melanie, not a task force member, facilitator.
Abe Lloyd.
Kristen Smith, county staff.
Corey McDonald, DNR.
Donaki.
Earl Weimer.
You can introduce yourself too, Kate.
And Kate Galambos, Triangle.
I got Chris Elder here with Whatcom County online. I'll just call you out. Dave, you want to say hi?
Yes, good morning. Dave Peterson, working with Triangle.
Thanks. Oliver?
Yes, Oliver Graw on the task force. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. Ellen?
Ellen Murphy.
Tom?
Tom Smith.
Barry?
Yeah, I'm here, Barry.
Brandy?
Good morning, Brandy Reed, Whatcom Conservation District staff and member of the task force.
Great. And we have an unknown Zoom user.
Frank.
Frank.
Yeah, that would be me, Frank, the Lummi Nation Task Force member.
Morning, Frank.
Morning.
Okay, I think we're well beyond our quorum. That's good news. We can make all sorts of decisions today. So review the agenda. Are there any comments or suggested revisions to the agenda as written? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the agenda as written. Hopefully folks had a chance to review the November 14th meeting summary. Any edits or changes to those meeting notes as written?
I see Brandy has her hand raised.
Brandy, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a question, sort of connecting the dots. In the minutes, it says that the survey is going to go out on the end on the 2nd of January, but in the communications that we've had, the 6th of January is the survey close date. So I don't know if that's just a legacy of us deciding on a different date after the minutes were after we had the discussion that the minutes are recording, or if that's an actual discrepancy in information that needs to be corrected.
It's a good catch. Let's just go ahead and shift the date to the 6th just to give people the most time possible. Oliver, go ahead.
Yeah, in the meeting notes, it didn't pick up on my comment about that there's a fair amount of research done on the effect of climate change on stream flows in Whatcom County and the effect of forest harvest on stream flows in Whatcom County. And I want to clarify that a lot of that work was, that was not reflected in the notes. And a lot of that work was accomplished down in Central Oregon, and it's foundational research, which does apply to Whatcom County because it's foundational research. And the work that was done specifically in Whatcom County was using Whatcom County specific data in the computer models. And so I wanted to just clarify my points that a lot of work has been done on the effect of climate change on stream flow and the effect of forest harvest on stream flow in Whatcom County, but the notes didn't really reflect that.
Can you just briefly describe which section of the notes you're referring to?
It's in the climate informed forest management subcommittee points where the councilman or the commissioner, I can't remember which, had brought up that the task force needs to decide what science-based literature and results from scientific studies applies in Whatcom County. And the notes kind of made it seem like there was none. And I just want to clarify, there's lots of data and scientific studies on those issues,
Yeah,
including Whatcom County.
Yeah, I do recall that coming up. put you on the spot, Kate, but, I guess our task force members comfortable with us adding a bullet into that discussion that kind of flags reference to some of the existing hydrologic data development underway in Whatcom County.
Yeah, and I sent Kate that comment, but very late, maybe about an hour ago. So I got those comments to Kate very late. I apologize for that, but my comment could be as emailed to Kate, could be a source of an additional bullet item.
Yeah, I think I had comments, Chris, in the meeting as well about concerns about some of the papers and questions about research that has been done or pointed to with respect to low summer flows or different issues that we're talking about, and just being sure where it's applicable, where it's based science, and where it's not. So, and that can be, you can have peer-reviewed studies that are applicable to the location they're in, and they can be extrapolated in some cases, and in some cases not. And so I think I think that's the discussion that we were all having at the point of the last meeting. You know, there's definitely, obviously not all research can be done in Whatcom County. And so we just as a group need to be sure that studies are not extrapolated or used in ways that aren't applicable. And I think I would say, to my knowledge, the only direct modeling, not research or studying, is the South Fork study that Oliver's talking about. And there are some things in there that I'm not sure are applicable in, or they're kind of, it's really a modeling of two extremes. And so we need to just be careful of how much we use that.
Yeah, I think we can jump into the nuance of the data at a later date, but maybe, I mean, there's no real.
Yeah, I agree. I brought the comment up, and I agree. We should cover these issues later on. I was just bringing up a fact that relates to the meeting notes in terms of what I had said during the meeting, and that was somehow missed in the meeting notes.
Yeah,
that's the only comment I was really trying to make. I wasn't trying to get on my soapbox and profess about the effect of climate change or forest harvest on stream flow. It's just bringing up a point that I'd made in the last meeting.
I got you. I think I might propose just push and pause button on adopting meeting summary and give you the opportunity to add a little bit more resolution to that area. So we'll just kick this down the road. Barry, do you have another comment on the minutes?
Yeah,
Well,
just, similar to Oliver's, this is Barry Wenger. You know, the best available science for critical area ordinance is a well-established process for actually defending those decisions in court, as is best science, which is under the Shoreline Management Act and other state planning. And so those processes are can be applied in the same way. So we have both scientific and legally sound decisions. But it's true, like in an area related to water, like wildlife.
Go ahead and push pause on that, Barry. We're definitely gonna get into that at some point, but we're just trying to adopt the meeting minutes at the moment.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into the data discussion at a future meeting date.
Yeah, well, Chris, I brought that up when Oliver brought it up last time, so I just wanted to make a connection there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just to clarify that, I was clarifying that I was involved in the discussion.
Yeah, no, I remember. Brandy, you have another comment?
Thank you. Yes. I'd ask that people that are in the room say their name before they talk so that we know who's talking, please. And then since we're going to be taking some time to revisit some sections of the minutes, I did want to highlight that the forest industry and economics and stewardship and land use reports are not accurate. And I'd like to have an opportunity to work with Triangle to get those more accurately representing what the reports were for those two subcommittees.
Okay.
Brittany, this is Melanie. Can you send something in writing to?
I can, and but I'm going to ask you guys to go back to your notes and try and more accurately reflect the comments that I made for both of those subcommittees because it's going to be a little bit before I can actually get to reviewing the video and trying to represent accurately the report outs.
Okay, thank you, Brandy.
Okay, so with that, I'm just gonna postpone adoption of the meeting summary till our next meeting. We'll keep moving on. Updates and announcements. Kirsten, you want to give the one update on committee member? Or I can give the update. So David Wallen did resign from the committee or the task force, just I think didn't have capacity to contribute as much as he wanted to. So we do have a vacancy, which is back on the council website, I assume. And do you know what date that application period closes?
So my understanding is there is no application period until someone submits an application. And then it starts the council from considered applications for 2 weeks after. So it will be open until filled, essentially.
And do you recall, or any of you recall, what his specific seat was on the task force?
Recording in progress.
He was a other representative from Western Washington University, kind of the science.
Yeah, is the science advisor
Yeah,
role.
relevant science disciplines.
All right, great. Okay, any other updates or announcements from task force members? I attended the Whatcom Family Farm Forestry Association winter luncheon on Saturday. It was quite enjoyable, connecting with some small forest landowners. My only update.
And I see Brandy's hand is raised. Is that a new hand, Brandy, for an update?
Okay. All right, let's keep rolling. Moving on to the public comment period. Just a brief reminder, public comments are limited to 2 minutes, and you can also submit via writing to the task force website. But do we have any members from the public?
It looks like we have Kaya Hayes and then someone logging in from the sheriff's office.
If any of you online would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Okay. Not seeing any, so we're going to keep on rolling into the heart of our work today. So next agenda item is to review the work plan schedule. So I'll pass it over to you, Kate.
Okay, and Melanie, could you pull up the work plan? Great, thank you. For folks online, it's Kate Galambos from Triangle. I'm just gonna spend a couple minutes today talking about kind of where we've been. So Melanie has our work plan up and then walk through in general where we're headed so that we can put our conversation today in a little bit of context. So where we've been, right, we're looking at the work plan schedule on your screen, which is also in your meeting packet. So far, you all have done a ton of work. We've worked to draft and review a plan outline, and we'll talk more about next steps for that at the end of the meeting. But just know that that's something that the project team has been working on in the background, kind of simultaneously to this goal development process. Triangle has completed the interviews, and we shared the results of our assessment interviews at our last meeting. Those went into developing the community values survey that you all also participated in developing. Again, thank you for your time reviewing those drafts. Your insights and expertise are super valuable as we put those questions together. So the status of the survey, we're glad to say it is now live on the Whatcom County website, and you can find it on the task force website. And Melanie will drop a link in our chat in just a minute. So that went live, I believe, Thursday of last week, which is part of the reason why we just pushed the deadline just a hair out to your question, Brandy, to that January 6th, just noting the holiday and waiting to close that until a full month after we opened it last week. So we'll have a little bit of instruction at the end about how you all can share that with your networks. That'll be another piece that'll be super valuable for you all to get in touch with folks who have expertise and interest in this area and want to contribute their input via the survey. And then, of course, you all have been meeting with your subcommittees over the last several months to work on these draft goal statements. We've gone through a few iterations as a group, as well as the work that you all have done outside of the scope of these meetings with your subcommittees. So again, thank you for the effort and time that you've put into that work. Our intention today is to move to approve goals, as well as make progress on the next steps. So just really specifically, you all submitted goal statements ahead of our last task force meeting in November. We at Triangle proposed just some suggestions for you all to consider ahead of this meeting, and then you all submitted revised goal statements ahead of this meeting, and we shared all of those with the full task force with about, I believe, 9 days ahead of this meeting. So you all could take a look, and hopefully if you all have comments, you've come prepared with some of those to facilitate this discussion today. So that's where we've been. Like I said, where we're headed today, we're hoping to approve goals. And once the group has approved our list of goals, our technical contractor, Dave, who's on the call today to observe, will start to incorporate them in the draft plan. As we've talked about before, this will be kind of the iteration of work moving forward. You all will be working to draft key components of the plan, and Dave, as well as Melanie and myself, will be working to incorporate those into the document itself. The next major piece of work that we'll be working on as a group will be drafting the objectives of the plan. I know you all have already started to work on that in your subcommittees, and that's great. That'll give us a foundation to move forward on. So we'll just be spending hopefully the next meeting or two revising those objectives within the context of the approved goals. And then, of course, the survey will continue to be open, and we'll be just asking for you all to pass that along up until the new year. So we'll kind of revisit the key points of, you know, homework ahead of our January 13th meeting, but I just wanted to pull up the work plan and make sure folks have an understanding of where we are today. So does anyone have any questions or comments on the work plan or what we're looking to achieve?
Damn it.
Jim, I think you're off mute. Did you have a question?
Oops, you heard me. Yeah, I was trying to find the raise your hand. I couldn't find it. Yeah, I just have a process suggestion that for all the committees to make their objectives with measurable outcomes and a time frame. If it's a process related outcome, you might not have a measurable outcome, but you would certainly have a time frame. That way we can turn these objectives into something more than aspirations.
Thanks, Jim. And as we, you know, today our focus is really on the goals, but you're absolutely right. As we move toward the objectives, we'll want to kind of fine tune them and narrow the scope as you described. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right. Great work, everyone. We just listed a huge amount of work that you've accomplished over the last couple of months. So again, thank you for your time and commitment to the process. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Melanie.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Thank you all. Good to see everybody here in the room. Thank you all for being here, and good to see everybody online as well. I'm really looking forward to having this extra time to really dive into the goals. And as Kate mentioned, you've all done a ton of work with subcommittees, and so thank you all so much for making the time to get together. I know it was really quick, short time frame in between our last meeting and this meeting, and things were busy with holidays and things like that. So thank you for making the time to meet and to have these discussions so that we can really move towards adoption and approval of the goals in this meeting today. It's 11:22, so we're ahead of schedule, which means we have more than our allotted 75 minutes to focus on this, which is great. I'm just going to talk through what the process over the next 85 minutes or so will look like, and then we'll dive in. So Kate has worked really hard on a mural board for this exercise, which is why we asked everybody to bring their laptops. And she'll have it up on the screen too, so that we can all follow along. But for the exercise itself, it'll be helpful to be working on your individual computers. And for folks in the room who need any additional assistance, I'll be floating around. Kate will be here and also focus for folks in the Zoom room who might need any assistance as well. So the first thing we're going to do is review the goals as written by the subcommittees, and I'll ask someone from each of the subcommittees to just read out the draft goals that you submitted. And these are also in the meeting packet, so everyone has access to them in the meeting packet as well, but I just want to remind everybody and have a chance to share any nuance or anything that you as a subcommittee feels is important to share along with the draft goal statements. Then, and just a note related to objectives, those objectives that you have all shared are captured. We have them, and it's so great that you've all moved into thinking about objectives, and it makes sense. But we don't have them in the meeting packet or on the mural, and that's just to keep us really focused on the goal statements today. After we've read the goal statements aloud, you'll all have about 10 minutes to walk through the exercise, and I'll walk through it in a little bit more detail, to flag any of the statements that you feel like A, looks great, I think this is great as written, or B, maybe this fits more as an objective or even an action, or C, this needs a little bit of tweaking. It's really close, but I just want to tweak the language a little bit. And I'll talk more specifically about that when we get there. And then finally, we'll come back as a group and we'll talk through the ones that you flagged that need a little extra work. And we'll have a group discussion, try to get to group agreement on any of those statements that need a little bit more refinement. Hopefully we'll have, somewhere around 3, 6, 9, we're in like the 10, 12, maybe we'll end up at between 10 and 15 goal statements that we'll be able to approve and adopt by the end of this meeting. So that's the goal. That's what it will look like. Any questions about that before I turn to subcommittee leads to read out goal statements?
Yeah, I have a,
Yeah, go ahead.
Kate, I got an email from you this morning, but I didn't get a link. So if I'm to do this online on my laptop, I guess I need a Zoom link. Is that how we're participating? I think she's going to put it on
I'm gonna
screen.
post it in the chat for Zoom, and then I can, if you're not logged into this meeting, that's a great question. I'll send it out via email right now as people are reading them aloud.
Perfect. Any other questions?
This is Oliver. I can't find my raise hand icon.
No problem, Oliver. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so just out of curiosity, I had to step out just for a moment. Hopefully I'm not wasting our time, but on the forest industry and economics goals, we had our meeting last week after the due date, as I recall, for our final set of subcommittee recommended goals. And I don't think what I'm seeing in the packet reflects that meeting last week. Is that correct, or am I way off base?
That's correct, Oliver. They were sent out via email after the packet was shared. So everybody.
Thank you. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Good point. All right, well, I'm just gonna go in order on the mural board. So we'll start with climate informed forest management. Is there someone from that subcommittee who would be Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And
So
do
I'll
you
just
have
read
them?
them?
Yeah,
Yes,
just
I'll just
read
read
them
these.
one at a time. And then if there's anything that you feel is important for us to note, related to the goals, then you can share that with the group at this time.
Well, just to preface this, we worked very hard on these and Melanie and Kate kept getting iterations from us because we kept thinking, oh, no. At the same time, I think there's a general feeling that let's get past this because it's the objectives that are really going to be what we need to work on in detail. But this is what we come up, just 3 goals. And it was a long list. And Melanie and Kate both pointed out that a lot of these were objectives or actions. And so we've got a subcommittee, it's got its own internal Google document that we can work on both as a whole and as individuals for that. Anyway, so ensure future healthy and climate resilient forests in Whatcom County by incorporating science-based practices so that ecosystem services are sustained and enhanced. So that's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is that county-owned forest lands are managed for resilience against climate-related impacts, such as rising temperatures, lowered summertime rainfall, reduced late summer and fall stream flows, increased flood frequency and severity, increased mass wading events, wildfires, and insect outbreaks. In other words, and then the third goal is basically the same as the second one, but with a difference, which is that the second one refers to county-owned forest lands because the county has obviously direct management authority over its own lands. The third one is the same ecological outcome, but it's for other ownerships in the county where the county can't, go in there and thin or, whatever it wants to do on DNR land or private land or whatever. So the third one is all other forest lands are managed for resilience against climate-related impacts such as rising temperatures, lower summertime rainfall, reduced late summer and fall spring flows, increased flood frequency and severity, increased mass wasting events, wildfires, and insect outbreaks. And just one more general comment, which is that this was the result of a process on a subcommittee where we kept everybody on the subcommittee bringing up individual objectives. And originally, these are all part of the goals, and we were related. Oh, this isn't a goal, this is an objective. And so we ended up with these very general things. That's all I'll say. Thank you. Sorry if I took too long.
No, that's great.
No,
Thank you.
good.
Yeah, that's helpful context. So the distinction between goal 2 and 3, all other forest lands and county-owned lands, has to do with the regulatory authority, the distinction between county and, okay,
Not just regulatory, but management.
management authority.
Also.
Okay. Mhm. Great. Well, let's move to the next bucket. Is there somebody from the Forest Management Coordination Subcommittee who would like to read the goals?
You do it.
I can read, I'll read them off. So we have 4 goals and we've reworked another version of goal 4, which I can. Do you have, can you just slip that up on the screen while I'm getting going?
Oh, I got it up there.
The second wording, that's
yeah.
from Tom Smith's
Sure.
email.
I wasn't sure, Russ, if that
Yeah, that's the
was
one.
the whole group had made that edit or if that
Well,
was.
it's,
suggestion
so
from-
that one will be, so I think the 3 of us, Tom, we talked about it a little bit. So it'll be, I think we put them both there and then get comments on both.
Okay,
That's
that
what I'm
works.
thinking. So we have, first is all classes of forest landowners in Whatcom County, including tribal, federal, state, county, industrial, and small private, are managing forests for resilience while meeting their needs and priorities. The second goal is local, state, federal, and tribal governments and other stakeholders are working together to plan and implement aligned forest resilience strategies. Third goal is local government and other partners and stakeholders are implementing financial incentives for forest land stewardship and forest cover retention. And the fourth goal is wildland fire management entities and service providers are collaborating, developing, and adaptively managing community wildfire prevention planning and services for improved community wildfire resilience and increased landowner and neighborhood wildfire risk reduction activities. And the alternative wording for goal 4 is wildland fire management entities and service providers are collaborating, developing, and adaptively managing community wildfire prevention planning and services for improved community wildfire resilience and public safety with increased landowner and neighborhood wildfire, it should be wildland fire risk reduction activities. So on the alternate goal 4, we changed wildfire to wildland fire to meet the current statewide terminology for wildland fire. And then we added to the list of the community wildfire prevention planning services, so on and so forth, we added public safety, which is the major aspect of our committee's goals. So we wanted to make sure that was included. So those are the two main changes, just coordinating with terminology and adding public safety in the list of areas of concern. Any questions about?
I think we'll, there'll lots of time for individual
Okay,
reflection
okay.
and, but if there's any, yeah, if there's any questions about how you got there, we can dive into that after we make it through these, yeah. Forest industry and economics. Do I have a volunteer to read these 3 goals?
I can read those off. So I think we had 7 goals at the beginning of our last subcommittee meeting and tried hard to condense them down just to kind of get the core of it and tried to make sure our goals were focused on kind of the industry and economics component, considering that the other subcommittees were tackling the rest of the forestry realm. So we have sustain a thriving timber industry, working forest land base and their associated economic benefits. I think there's been a lot of discussion around recreation or kind of the lack of reference to recreation of some of the other subcommittees. So also wanted to flag that we wanted to provide robust recreation opportunities that deliver economic and health benefits to local communities. And the last one is that forest ecosystems provide hydrological, ecological, and social economic benefits as well.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to stewardship and land use.
And cover that. Jen Mackey here. Our last subcommittee, we added 2 words to goal number 4, which I need to update a little bit on typage there. But first goal is improve forest resilience through active forest land stewardship. A lot of the meat of these goals is really in the objective statements. So these really focus on kind of those stewardship activities, regulations, etc. Second goal is to retain and increase forest and tree canopy cover. Again, a lot of the meat of that particular goal is in the objective statements, really looking at conversion, increasing tree canopy cover, etc. The third goal statement, and this one, perfect, you fixed, thank you, Kate. We just added and diversify to maximize forest benefits, looking at additional economic ecosystem benefits beyond just the trees themselves. And then our fourth goal statement, which is very similar, if not pretty much the same as the forest coordination one, but really looking at the stewardship specific objectives of local, state, federal, and tribal governments and other stakeholders are working together to align and implement forest management and resilience strategies. Again, looking at specifically those forest stewardship activities in the coordination with all of those entities.
Thank you, Jen. Well, before we pivot to the next activity, are there any clarifying questions from anyone related to these goal statements as written?
I just had one, it's interesting,
Yeah, go ahead,
just reflecting on the use of the term like wildland fire.
What's that?
Just interesting thinking about the term wildland fire and
Yeah.
almost just trying to think through, what is the intersection between like the wildland kind of undeveloped fire and then like our speckled development in that interface. So it was just a question in my mind was, we focused just on kind of the undeveloped kind of wildland fire spaces, or does that wildland term also kind of encompass areas where we have limited development or other uses? And it was.
That's a good question. Corey, do you have a thought
I
on
think
that?
it does cover it, but Tom would probably be able to answer that one better than I could, but I think it does cover it. You're talking about basically whether wildland fire covers the WUI, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Tom. It does. The old terminology was forest fires. And they're just like, well, there's forests, there's sage, there's different sorts of plant communities that all can burn. So it became wildland fire.
Mhm. Yeah, in recognition of all of those aspects that contribute to.
Yeah, if it's all encompassing, that works for me. It's probably just worth defining that somewhere in the plan where we kind of call out that wildland includes the wildland urban interface and other land uses.
Yeah, and there was a comment from Brandy, recommend we expand the text to include WUI in addition to wildland.
But I will say that it's okay to, sorry, I'm getting some feedback.
Brandy, it looks like you joined twice, perhaps.
How about now? There we go.
There we go.
Oh, we lost you, Brandy.
Now you're muted twice.
Try again, Brandy. You looks like you're unmuted. Not hearing you.
Now you can hear me.
Now we can.
Thank you. What Chris suggested works for me. His suggestion makes sense to me. That's fine. I would just say that while those of us who are in practice maybe understand that wildland includes all of these geographic areas, there's a lot of people working in this space and they're not necessarily all up to speed on current nomenclature. And so just whatever we can do to make sure that we're helping people understand what we're including in that word, it will be.
Thanks, Brandy. Oliver, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. And I can't remember if there is a representative from either tribe in the meeting today, but I just want to make sure that from their perspective, their cultural interests in forest lands and resilience are reasonably represented in these goal statements. That's a question if they're in this meeting.
Thanks, Oliver. Frank, Bob is here. I know, Frank, you have to hop off a little bit early, but we'll move into the reflection exercise now so that Frank has an opportunity to participate. And then, of course, after this meeting, Frank, if you'd like to follow up, we can do that.
Well, at this time, Lummi has that Article Creek parcel up there. Currently the tribe has 1,500 acres, and we're currently in the process of retaining the management responsibility for the conservation uh, lands that abut that piece. So once that is done, we'll be starting the process of management plan. But currently, we have no working plan for Oracle Creek at this point.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Well, I don't know when we start talking about additional comments, so I could save it until that discussion. Are we still?
Yeah, this is just any clarifying questions related to the goals, but if you, just so everyone feels ready to do some reflection, reviewing, and we're gonna take about 10, we have time, we might need 15 minutes for that internal reflection. Before we do that, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, this is Carl, that the Forest Industry and Economic Subcommittee had a fourth goal, which we put in the parking lot because we weren't quite sure whether it was under our purview or should be under all the committees. And that was to examine county policies, programs, and organizational structure and staff capacity that could affect forest resilience and to provide recommendations for changes of county, all those county things. Certainly under economics, our committee thought we could make recommendations, but under sustainability and other forest management things, it probably needs to be kind of an overarching look at from each committee. What do current county policies allow them to do? And do they have the resources to do any of this stuff we're about to ask them to do?
This is Steve. In response to Carl's comment, this may lead into a more general discussion, but I notice a lot of these goals overlap among the subcommittees. This one doesn't. This one was somehow left out. And so I would think that it would be great to try to figure out a way to put it in.
Well, in that spirit, let's move to the exercise where you all have an opportunity to do that. And I'll talk through that. And then Russ, if you have a question.
Yeah, I guess my quick question is our finished product with this with the goals. So Russ, it's my understanding is that the subcommittees have come together with the goals, but we will have a full task force goals and they won't be differentiated by subcommittee. So we can put the one that you're saying, Carl, in that list as we refine that. And the ones like two of our committees had the same wording, that'll just be one goal. So by meshing them all, we'll take care of that issue, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. That's a really good point. So thanks for, leaving that in as part of thinking about the outcomes and that result here. So what we'll do now is everybody has a link to the mural. Let us know if you don't. We have 10 minutes. We can take 15 if needed for individual reflection, time to read over these goal statements and add your thoughts and input. So in the mural board, you'll see that there are 4 different kind of work zones. And as Russ noted, these are organized by subcommittee now. However, if there's something that doesn't fit neatly in one of those, that's okay, right? Like we can work out of these boxes for now, but ultimately these will be in the plan, not, we'll have some kind of organization, maybe, loosely based on the subcommittee topic focus areas, but we're not limited by those bounds, right? Like of the subcommittees. So what we'd like you all to do is for each of the draft goal statements, there are 3 different colored circles, little sticky dots below that you can click and drag. And if you think that this goal statement looks good to go as is, we ask that you put a little green dot next to it to indicate that. If you feel like this is relevant and it's close, but it needs a little tweaking to the language, you can put a yellow dot next to it. And then associated with that would be a sticky. You can use those purple stickies, click and drag them around to add maybe what your suggested language would be or note the edit. I think this word should be swapped with this word, that kind of thing. So any yellow circle dot should be accompanied with a suggested revision, hopefully. And then the orange dots are for goal statements that you feel like really aren't goal statements. These might be more objectives, or these might be more action statements. So any questions? Oh, wait, sorry. And finally, and in each of those work zones are off-white blank stickies. If you feel like, oh, there's a goal statement missing, like Carl suggested, we're really missing something, we need a new statement, that's where you can put those. And then wherever they end up, you know, is not that important. We'll discuss them. We'll discuss all of the draft goal statements. So don't worry too much about whether that new goal statement fits neatly within one of the subcommittees. Any questions before we get started? Yes, Brandy.
If we are just struggling with how something is phrased, would we use a yellow dot and then have a sticky that would clarify the language change that we're recommending?
That's exactly right, Brandy. Yep, yellow dot, and then you can use those purple stickies to suggest alternate language that you feel would be more appropriate. Any other questions? Anyone in the room? Okay, the last thing I wanted to note is that if there's some discussion and you find that background noise in the room distracting for those of you that are in the Zoom room, feel free to silence your computer and turn the volume all the way down, and we'll make sure to get your attention in the chat when it's time to all come back together as a group. We've got 10 minutes for this. I'm going to propose we do 12 minutes to get us evenly to 12 o'clock. So just plan on coming back all together at 12 o'clock to discuss reflections. If I see that everyone's still working and we need more time, I'll extend it and I'll put that in the chat as well. So I'll be floating around the room for folks that are here in person to answer any questions. Kate will be staying in Zoom. So if you need any help, raise your hand, come off mute and grab our attention and we'll be able to help. All right.
We can mute the room here if we want.
Sure, yeah, we can see. All right, everybody go ahead. I'll see you back here at 12 o'clock. Raise your hand or reach out if you have any questions.
Sorry, but I can't seem to be able to manipulate this. Is there some editing permission I need to create?
Is that Jim?
Yeah, that was Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah.
Recommend.
So I can't make it larger. I can't move anything. It just, I can see other people doing things.
So
Okay. So let's see.
it's not typing.
Jim, when you came in, did it ask you to enter as a visitor?
Okay.
Perhaps I use an old link.
Why don't you, if you could, can you use the link that's in the chat? I'll put it in there again for you.
Okay. Chat.
I just sent it.
Chat. Okay, okay, link. Oops.
I wish I had a bigger screen. It's too tiny.
Yeah, you need one that size.
Yeah.
And then is it prompting you to enter as a visitor or log in?
It says Mural warming up.
Perfect.
Okay, log into Mural, right?
So enter as a visitor, there's going to be two options.
Oops. Work email.
To the instructions. Know what code if it's a good
Green is good. Russ.
Green is good. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Do I have to use a Gmail account?
Jim, you shouldn't have to log in.
Okay.
I'm not able to do anything either, so
Create an account or log into Mural, it says.
Can you share your screen so I can?
If you look right underneath that, where it says login, there should be just a little subtext that says enter as guest or enter as visitor.
Yeah, okay, I got that. Do that.
That should get you in there.
Visiting giraffe.
There you go.
That's you.
Okay, so now I can move things. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Ellen, were you able to follow along with that, or are you still having trouble?
I'm unable to get in. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Ellen. We can work with you.
Yeah, this is Oliver, and I can move a cursor around, but I don't see a name associated with me. And I just entered a comment into one of the goals, and I don't see my purple paste-it with my comment.
Let's see, Oliver. Okay, then let's see. If you all have Ellen and Oliver, if you're still having trouble getting in as a visitor, can you add, Oliver, your comment in the chat and I will plug it into the appropriate place on the mural?
I got in now, but I can't, the text is so small, I can't even read it.
So there's a little zoom. You can use your, if you have a mouse, you can zoom in with your mouse, or if you go to the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a zoom option and you can zoom and navigate that way.
Okay, I'll try that. Let's see if I can get anywhere.
This is Barry, and I got in as a visitor, but I can't get out as a visitor, so I can do anything. And so I've tried about 3 times to exit and come back in, but I'm seeing like I'm stuck as a visitor that can't comment. Might be your benefit.
You want to be in as a visitor, so if you're in as a visitor, you are good to go, and you can click on those dots with your cursor or move around the sticky notes.
Oh. Let's see if this works.
And Ellen, I just started sharing my screen so I can show you where the zoom
Well, I found the Zoom, but okay, I'm still. Double pictures.
Out of greens.
Go ahead and just.
Well, somebody stretched a dot into an oval. What does that mean?
I can't get it.
Oh, I see you in there, Ellen.
Or no, sorry. Just do control C.
Which dots do I click on if I'm visitor?
I'll add more.
So at the bottom of each of the sections, I'll show you on the screen here, Barry. We've got all of our dots down here. So if you click on them, you can drag them around.
I can't see where you're doing that.
Yeah.
You see everybody else doing it?
Yeah, I do.
And sometimes you run out of dots.
Well, I got my picture is actually down at the bottom from 15 years ago, where the giraffe is and the or hippopotamus or whatever, and some initials. I want to see what kind of animal I turn out to be. It should be a bear. Okay, well,
Need probably a little bit more time, folks, so let's go to 12:05.
Well, this is fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you, everybody. I've got another commitment I got to buzz off to, but thanks a lot for all your good work.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, take care.
Why Jim's showing up as Cory?
I don't know. It was really confusing.
And I'm also showing up as Cory. And I
Yeah.
wondered if that's what was going on with Brandy, where she showed up twice.
Oh, interesting. Taking over.
This room is great. It's always old people looking like this.
I still can't get this to work, but that's okay. Yeah.
Barry, if you, you can see the goals and just on your own document somewhere, note comments. Or in writing, like either pen and paper that you can share feedback, or in your own Word document would be even better.
Got my video on. I thought that might make a difference. I didn't think, last time I tried it, it screwed up the whole system, so that's why I wasn't using the video, but that doesn't make any difference in this situation. Okay, I see what you're saying. Thank you.
We're fighting over the last sentence.
There we go. That's one.
Are you getting mad at me?
Is it you?
Yeah. I got it out of
Are you
your word.
the visiting bee or panda? Rhonda?
Has emailed sort of a major revision of the climate informed forest management goals. I don't know if we want to consider that or not. But her proposal, and Ellen, you're on there, you could say, but it basically replaces goals 2 and 3 with something completely different. And I don't know if we're too late for that or not, but I just looked at the email now because by the time it was sent, I was on the road.
Is it in?
I'm gonna have to give up here on this, Steve. It's just not, somehow I'm back in a window that I can't manipulate, so I don't know how that happened.
Hey, Ellen, can you are you able to open the chat and plug in comments into the chat?
Oh, sure.
And if you let me know where you'd like them, I can just paste them in there for you.
What you could do, Kate, is to put those in a cream colored square.
Per edits.
As possible additional goals rather than eliminate the others right now.
Actually, that's just, so you get all kinds of clicks on this, and so that's just a suggested language.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah, that's just suggested, but 2 and 3 are completely different.
Yeah, this is Oliver. I have the same problem. I can move a cursor around, but I can't get it to do anything.
I like the ones.
Yeah.
Oliver, are you able to do the same thing as Ellen and
But
submit
actually-
any comments in the chat?
Actually, 2 is way more general than our other goal statements, and 3 is really an objective, I think.
Also, for anyone who's having any trouble, if you take as long as you're able to see the discussion, if you just jot down your notes, either, like I said, in a document or on paper, we'll have plenty of time for group discussion, and we'll just make sure that when you raise your hand, you have a chance to verbally share your thoughts and input. So this is really about, you know, as much about internal reflection and time to capture your own ideas. And if, as long as you share that out verbally, I think it's okay that it's not captured in the mural. So thanks for being flexible, working with us. I know technology is not always, you know, it doesn't play fair all the time. So I'm gonna ask that we take the next 3 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, I put Ellen's suggestion as a possible additional goal. What I think. just
I
put it
see
on.
it, yeah,
Got
thank
it.
you.
I just copied it off the email.
Perfect.
Thanks, Steve.
Should have been more systematic. Not sure I put dots on all of the categories.
Lots of dots, we see lots of
Yeah,
dots.
which ones are mine?
There's more dots than there are people.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's the thing with internet polls, you change your name every time.
Our surveys,
You must have some sort of, post function where you could add dots, right? You could create dots out of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, out of thin air,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's
yeah,
amazing.
Be good. There's a lot of the orange dots left.
You know, this is just an electronic version of putting sticky notes on a
That's
whiteboard,
right,
right?
that's what we're trying to
Without getting
replicate.
up and down.
Exactly.
moving a lot quicker to do that.
You got it.
Yeah, right.
Nailing theses to a church door.
Well, that
All right,
lasted
one more
long-
minute, folks, then we'll come back.
That lasted longer than this one. That, the thesis to the church door, so far it's lasted quite a century.
It's true, yeah.
This will not.
But have any of us ever actually nailed a thesis to a church door? I don't think so.
Have you read the thesis? Oh, it's worth it.
I don't envy, okay, Melanie having to make sense of all this dots and squares.
All right,
That's the same thing I told them.
it's 12:05.
I didn't want to be the one that makes sense about that.
And thank you all for working through that and for overcoming some technological hurdles. For those of you who experienced difficulty, I apologize. But thank you for working with us. We're trying to create the experience as Steve and Russ were just discussing of being in the room and posting sticky notes and things on a whiteboard back in the days when we were all gathering in person more frequently. And this allows us to do that. It's not perfect, but I appreciate the opportunities it provides for us to all provide a lot of feedback all at once that we can now dive into. So thank you for going through that. What I'd like to do now, as we are all back together, is to start looking at the goal statements that have all green dots associated with them and confirm that we are ready. If you are in the mural, you'll be able to see down at the bottom, we have a row for goals for adoption. So that means that you have all reviewed this goal statement, these goal statements, and don't feel that they need further refinement. they've got all green dots associated with them, so they look good as is. It looks like there's at least one that we could put in that bucket, and that's in the forest industry and economics. Forest ecosystems provide hydrological, ecological, and social economic benefits. So we're gonna go ahead and move that down into that category so that we don't have to dive into a deep discussion on that. The next one I see is in the forest management coordination. Local, state, federal, and tribal governments and other stakeholders are working together to plan and implement aligned forest resilience strategies. So it looks like we were up. Yeah, Jen?
I did have one general comment in this
Okay.
section that just kind of went across to all four, was that there was differences in how all the different entities were described in all of these four
Okay.
goals. So I just kind of wonder if that's across the board, something that you might want to look at. Just throwing
Okay.
that out there.
So there, yeah, I see below there's local government, other partners, local state, yeah, okay.
Well, I think maybe, Russ here, maybe Triangle can do some of that final coordinating of, every time we say this name, we use the same. So
Some of
I
that
don't-
consistency,
Yeah.
yeah, if that, of course, like this is, as this is pulled into the plan and there's opportunities for review of the plan, some of those tweaks, kind of more like language specifics, could be sorted as long as, the meaning of the goal statement is not changed. In this case, it wouldn't be, it's just determining consistency in how we reference these groups and entities.
Also, another, in part of that, your same comment there, or was removing small from private landowners. And I guess the reason for differentiating that is both Hampton and Sierra are private family-owned corporations. But they're not small.
Okay, define small.
Small, I think, there's definitions for the, that the DNR uses. Is it 1,000 acres?
I'm sure.
I think
I'm
we
sure
can,
there
we
are
can find
definitions.
that, but I think there's definitions in terms of, if for certain, tax category and access to other programs. So if we coordinate that small, in our definitions, that small with other, other entities that, because some programs are only available for small landowners. So it is a category that has some validity for interactions with government.
So that's more for the goal statement, right? Okay. So before we pivot to that, Jen, are you okay with moving that statement into group? Yep. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, this is Frank here. I'd like to,
Go ahead.
I think, in my understanding, the definition that the state uses between a small landowner and a large landowner is determined upon the amount of annual harvest. I believe it's 11 million board feet. Institutes a small, under that is a small landowner, but I'm not sure if that's correct. But I know it's the amount of harvest taken determines the small from a large.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for that clarification. Barry, I see your hand. Is that?
Yeah, this is really not working for me very well, but one thing I wanted to say, it's not a popular thing, it never is, but in management, there's incentives that governments like DNR and county can provide to people that are actually following the law and the plan. But there should also be disincentives through enforcement. DNR site actually has a nice page on there, or at least a section on ATV users, kids probably, going up and down a creek causing about $100,000 damage. And so all the things that, even if you're trying to make it better, we should focus also on not making things worse. And enforcement tends to be one of those things that governments just do not want to do. No one wants to do it really. It's not popular, and it's, you know, senators and representatives will call you up and say, you know, back off my constituent. But you know, a lot of damage and long-term damage can happen just from people not really being part of the plan. So I'd like to have that put in there somewhere. I was thinking under forest management coordination, but it's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Just to clarify, are you suggesting a new goal that you feel is not captured?
No, I was saying under the forest management coordination, probably. It talks about governments working together to plan and implement aligned forest resilience strategies, but it doesn't quite go to the next step of, you know, let's see. There was one in here. Oh, there it is. It's the one, that one here right there, incentives for forest land stewardship and forest cover retention. There should also be disincentives.
Mm. Is it okay, Barry, if when we get to that goal statement that we come back to your comment?
Sure. I wasn't sure where we are because I can't control any of this at this
Sure.
point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kate's sharing the screen, and what we're doing right now is we're focusing on the goal statements that had pretty unanimous agreement. We had green stickies all across to indicate that they look good as is. So we're just confirming that. So then we can move to the ones that need further discussion. So I think if we move to climate informed forest management, there is a new goal statement that looks like had some approval, but I want to make sure that since it is new, that others had a chance to read it. And it reads, Whatcom County, if you scroll down a little, Kate, there you go. Whatcom County forests are managed against current and future climate impacts. And then
I don't see that showing.
It's up on the right.
Far right.
Consider
Is that
moving the
under
list
stewardship,
of
or-
such as items into the objectives. Okay, was this a rewrite, Jen, or is
Yep,
this? Okay,
That's for both of them.
got it.
And
Copy
Russ,
pasted.
it's up on the screen if you want to look up here.
There, yeah.
Yeah, question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me that that's the purpose of the whole task force. It's not an individual goal. It's, you know, it's in a preamble to the report. It's a whole reason we have this meeting, I'll have this meeting. So I don't know if it's really should belong there as an individual goal statement or as an overarching, can't say goal, purpose, non-objective. I have to think of a word, that's the reason why we're here.
Mission statement.
I think, Steve, so this was, Kate, if you could scroll over to one of the two teal post-its that Jen was looking at. So these two goal statements. One is county-owned forest lands are managed for resilience against climate-related impacts, and then the such as. So I think, and then Jen, you can jump in. The idea was just to remove the such as and combine those two goal statements into one. The such as would be covered more in the objectives.
Yeah, and we had discussed that possibility, although it was after the deadline.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, so where it says Whatcom County Forest, so county, that's referring to county owned forest?
I don't believe so. I think
No.
this is,
It isn't. It's just general forest in Whatcom County.
This is Corey.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
if I understood you, Melanie, were you just, or maybe I don't know if you were suggesting or I'm understanding, but like there's the county owned forest lands and then there's all forest lands, and you could just add into those county owned forest lands are managed for current and future climate related impacts.
or rather than distinguishing between county and all other forests in this goal statement, combining it into just Whatcom County forests in Whatcom County. And I'm interpreting, Ellen, was this your suggestion?
Yes, and maybe it is more accurate to say forests in Whatcom County are managed against current and future climate impacts.
So I would say that if that gets added as a separate goal, then that would be okay. But we talked in our subcommittee at great length that we needed 2 specific goals delineating the difference between county-owned land and all other forest lands in Whatcom County. And so my suggestion was you could just add current and future to each of the existing goals and not add a new separate goal. And then you've kind of got what Ellen's adding without adding an entire new goal. But if you do add that goal, you still need to have the other 2, because how you get to that, as Russ pointed out earlier, is that the county can implement thinnings or do whatever it wants on its own land. On other lands, it's going to be more of an encouragement, or it's a different method of maybe adding ordinances or funding or whatever. So they're 2 different things.
Yeah, I assume that would come in the objectives when you start getting down into details about what we can do on county-owned forest lands versus all other that the county doesn't have control over. But that was just my intention.
I'd like to recommend that we, so sorry, I have some opinions about this, but I just would like to step back for a second and ask if we can focus on the goals that have actually been vetted by the subcommittees before diving into new goals that are being recommended through this process. That would just be like a process check-in that I would ask for us to weigh in on. I think it's going to be more productive if we focus on the stuff that has already gone through a fair amount of vetting. And I served on this subcommittee, and I think that we have a lot of splitters in our community here, and which means that we're very detail oriented. We're very precise in how we word things. And I think we landed with these 2 different goal statements that basically say the same thing, but they're targeting 2 different land use kind of groups or categories. And the reason for that is because of the kinds of objectives and actions that we think are going to get stacked underneath this, and that it's going to get kind of like awkward to talk about all lands. But we don't know that until we actually start working with you guys, Triangle, Dave, to actually start writing the text. We're going to know better whether, as we get a little further down the road, whether or not the lumping or splitting is really important. And so I would suggest that the intent here is what, like bridge the gap between what, whoever was in the audience, I didn't catch your name, who just spoke a minute ago, and Ellen, that like we would hang on to Ellen's suggestion that it might be possible that these 2 goal statements can be merged into one, and they can be that all of the actions and objectives and, actions, et cetera, can be handled in a really facile, elegant way as one goal statement, but that maybe we don't know that yet. And we're just sort of keeping track of things on 2 different land user groups in order to have some clarity around all the other work that's going to come around actions and objectives, et cetera. That's what I would say for everybody's consideration with regards to this current discussion about these 2 goals and the suggestion to simplify. I'm for simplifying. I just don't know that the stuff that we're going to stack up underneath county-owned land recommendations and non-county-owned land recommendations will be able to handle it all under one goal statement.
Well, they'll be different, obviously. I mean, county-owned forest lands, then they can be direct statements. On others, it'll probably be more of an issue of objectives of education and encouraging private landowners to do what we stated in the county-owned forest lands. Anyway, but I thought that might be more appropriate under the objectives, but it was just a suggestion for the group to consider.
Thanks, Ellen. And then before I go to Barry, just appreciating your comment, Brandy, we are, this suggestion is related to the 2 goal statements that were vetted. So just tying that all together, but we will continue to focus on the original goal statements from subcommittees before moving on to new ones. I've put that suggestion into 2 distinct goal statements down below. Kate, if you can scroll down to our new table that I think reflect where that discussion landed, which is still distinguishing between county-owned and other forest lands, but then just simplifying the text to remove the such as. So just trying to capture the dialogue as it evolves. Barry, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm a land use planner, so I look at things typically like in a comprehensive plan or state plan where you have overall goals, and then and make those as as broad as possible. And so in this case, I would use all forest lands are managed for resilience and have one goal. And then normally you would go to policies to make the difference between county-owned lands and all other forest lands. And you can make that split there. And then you go to objectives and finally to action items. And that would just simplify I don't know why we're not using policies at this point. I see in the future we're going to be doing that. So this would take care of this problem and set us up for I think a more logical framework.
Go ahead, Steve.
This is Steve. I was just asking, we don't want to stick on this for the whole rest of the meeting, but what does it hurt to have them separate? Given that the purpose of having them separate is that they will have different objectives underneath them. What does it hurt?
Yeah, well, I'm hearing a balance between simplification, right, and then making important distinctions. So in the interest of moving us forward, and Brandy's point about, we're approving these for now, noting that a lot of this is based on objectives and things might change and there's other opportunities for review, but that this helps us move forward, right, and move on to the next step of objective forming. So I'll ask, are there any other than this question of the distinction between county-owned or other forest lands, are there any other notes or requested edits to these 2 goal statements?
So you, Russ here, so you're suggesting just, talking about moving the ones that the committee has vetted down in there.
Once
So-
we get to the point where we
for
feel.
those 2, any refined language? for
Yeah,
each
and if
one?
you look on the screen, Russ, this is the just slightly simplified language.
Cutting out all the such as.
Mhm.
Yeah, the committee, so you were on the committee?
What's that?
This was one of your.
Yeah, and we started listing and then we just kept adding the list and adding the list.
Are
adding
you
the
okay
list.
with taking out the such as?
Yes, I
Okay.
am,
I
Corey.
am, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
Yeah, I think the such as statements in these were a compromise to not lose some, some points that people on the committee were making. And I think if we could just hang on to this as a subcommittee so that when we go back to, building objectives and actions, we can circle back on, well, what was it that we were really wanting to address in this such as statement about rising temperature or et cetera. And I think for me, these revised, simplified goal statements work. And the subcommittee can pull this thread through the future work that we're doing on objectives in terms of the such as statement. I would just put that out there for the subcommittee to sort of say, yes, it's good. Or maybe not even the subcommittee, but the whole task force. There's a way to come back to that. It's not lost just because it's not in the final goal statement, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks, Brandy. Yeah, Steve has
Well,
a
just
hand.
as a flippant comment, I'm a fan of fake Einstein quotes because they're all over. And one of my favorite fake Einstein quotes is make things as simple as possible, but not simpler. So that's why I think we need to take out all of such as, but leave the 2 goal statements.
Okay. Sounds like group is in pretty sound agreement on this, and we can move forward. That was great. I appreciate the dialogue there. Let's stick to some of the original draft goals from this subcommittee. So at the very top, we've got ensure future healthy and climate resilient forests in Whatcom County by incorporating science-based practices so that ecosystem services are sustained and enhanced. Looks like there might be an unfinished comment on this sticky, so apologize, we weren't able to clean it up. We've got one little yellow dot here and a suggestion. Revise as vision desired future state statement. So it looks like that might have to do with the tense of the way this is written. Does whoever had that suggestion want to clarify and add any more detail to that?
That was me. And I would just direct everybody to the comment in the chat where I'm suggesting that the goal statements are more effective if they're written as a vision or a desired future state statement. So it would just be a rewording of this so that its syntax is similar to the other goal statements in this group, as well as the other groups that are structured in a way that says, this is the thing that is the goal, not we're going to do something to get to the goal, but this is the goal.
That's really helpful feedback. Brandy, do you think for the purposes of this exercise, we could save that for future discussion when we get more into the written plan review?
I think so. Yeah, I think we can clean it up later. I just wanted to say that that's the revision I would recommend to this.
And like you said, we won't lose any of this, so it's important feedback. It looks like there were green dots otherwise, so unless there are any other comments or suggested edits, I think we can move into this. We can move this statement into the ready for approval. Unless I see any other comments, no hands in the Zoom room. All right. Well, let's move to forest management coordination. I know we started in here. We had one that looked good. We have a couple that have some suggested edits. So at the top there, Kate, perfect. All classes of forest landowners in Whatcom County, including tribal, federal, state, county, industrial, and small private, are managing forests for resilience while meeting their needs and priorities. We had a little bit of a discussion about the definition of small private. Jen's suggestion was to remove that distinction. What do folks think about this goal statement with the removal of small so that it goes industrial and private are managing forests for resilience? Go ahead, Steve.
I think we need to think of some way to define the person who's got 10 acres and is managing for conservation, let's say, or future income from Sierra Pacific. And what the word for that is, whether you don't want it to say small, but Sierra Pacific, as Corey pointed out, Sierra Pacific or Sierra Pacific and Hampton are private. So I just think we need a good word for that to distinguish the 10-acre plot from Hampton. Or, yeah. Is that a good word?
Isn't there a zoning classification like commercial forestry versus
rural
forestry? Yes. Okay.
I mean, the consistency of the word small is just, the DNR's already got the small forest landowners office, so there's a whole kind of defined category that DNR targets in their engagement. So I guess that would be one reason I would support keeping it as small, just because it's consistent with the language DNR uses. Block of ownership.
Can I add in my comment here? So if we only retain small, then that excludes owners like Whatcom Land Trust, who's not a small private landowner. We own and manage 6,500 acres across the county. So my concern is by identifying small private landowners, we're excluding all of the other private landowners in there. So I mean, even in here it says including tribal, federal, state, county, industrial. I mean, private landowners, we can keep that kind of broad and then get specific in the objectives.
We did have another word that we used there.
Russ, can you just make sure
Russ.
I can hear you? Yeah.
So we had a word, we had private nonprofit, is what we used for that. We didn't include it in here, but that would, that would encompass quite interest, because I do think we do need to include small landowners as a category, but I think adding private nonprofit might cover that as a category.
Yes, I guess my recommendation here is just removing small in the goal statement, just keeping it broad to private landowners, and then maybe just getting more specific in the objective statement of the difference between the small landowners, the larger nonprofit, et cetera, on top of that as well.
Russ, you're a member of WFFA, right?
What's that?
You're a member of WFFA?
Yeah.
How does it define itself?
You know, I've been a member for 40 years, but I can't tell you precisely how we do it in terms of acreage. You know, we have different levels of dues depending on how many acres you have. But Carl?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, in the last one, we got rid of the such as, do we need all this list of including, if we're right at the beginning, we say all classes of forest landowners, maybe we just leave it at that and get rid of the laundry list.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Carl. I know we've got some folks in the hands up, or folks in the room with hands, so I just want to be thinking of us here and those in the room. So apologies if this is not in the proper order, but I see Oliver and then Tom. Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, thank you. I want to make sure we all understand that even rural residential properties with forests cumulatively could be very important in terms of forest resilience throughout the county. So I don't want to have us eliminate that category from this goal. And so far our discussion has gone as far down as rural forest zoned areas. But I just want to emphasize again that there's cumulatively quite a bit of rural residential with forest cover on them that cumulatively could be important in terms of forest resilience.
Thanks, Oliver. Tom?
Yeah, I know the conversation's kind of moved ahead on that, but I agree with what Oliver just said. There are a lot of very small landowners who have maybe, you know, 5 or 3 acres of trees that all play into it. But I could also see possibly if we want to reduce the list rather than adding more, you know, at first I was thinking, well, we could just say tribal, state, federal, county, industrial, and non-industrial, or maybe I could also just live with saying tribal, federal, state, county, and private, and that would include all private landowners. But I also realizing that there's a big difference between the timber companies and steward forestry lands and small private landowners. But either way, I could bump it down to just eliminate industrial and small and just say private landowners.
Corey and then Brandy. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, I would just say too, you could just say classes. Another suggestion would be government rather than federal, state, and county, because we're losing some certain government entities. City of Bellingham has forests. You could maybe change it to commercial instead of industrial. But I think tribal, I mean, even if it's tribal government, but I think it needs to be specified. So I'd say tribal, government, and private would probably cover it if we actually even need to define the classes.
Brandy, go ahead.
Sure. So small private industrial can be private. So I don't think that saying industrial and private really works. Typically, non-industrial, small private non-industrial forest land is meant to encompass any organization or individual landowner owned land that's not involved in forest, production. So, and then the last commenter, again, I didn't catch your name. Sorry, I cannot seem to remember your name. I think simplifying can work, government, private, and tribal. It can put, but you're going to have to, and as long as we all understand that private, we're talking about commercial as well as non-commercial and all of those small acreages that Oliver was referring to. I think it just really comes down to our definitions. We should certainly have a definition section so that whatever assumptions we're making in terms of the terminology that we're using, it's easy for anyone else that didn't go through this process to know what we meant.
Thanks, Brandy. I'd like to, take that suggestion and maybe offer that as a way through this process is when we get to definitions, such as things like what classes of forest landowners, that's something that can be, in the introductory part of this plan, and not something that I think needs to be defined in these goal statements. So if we remove that from this definition, Kate, if you just scroll down slightly, and we say all classes of forest landowners are managing forests for resilience while meeting their needs and priorities. Is that, does that capture everything? And knowing that we'll come back to a discussion on classes of forest landowners and defining that later on. Any concerns with that as written online? All right. Well, that's helpful. I think we know we need to revisit definitions, and we'll note that for a future agenda topic. Let's move down on our screen to the two other draft goal statements from this subcommittee. Local and bottom left, local government and other partners and stakeholders are implementing financial incentives for forest land stewardship and forest cover retention. So we've got some suggestions, and I'll just go from top to bottom. In the very top upper left, seems like this is too specific. Could it be that coordination takes place to inform, access, and provide tools and incentives for actions that support resilience, including stewardship and cover retention? So sounds like there's a concern about the specificity of the goal statement as written. Is this, whoever made this suggestion, want to clarify how this edit would fit into the draft statement as written?
I think that was me, but I'm having a hard time reading it. Let me try and, oh, what did I do? I had, oh, that's what I did. I went to my Zoom thing instead of this. Okay, so I just thought it would be a little bit better to just make this goal, if possible. It not necessarily has to happen, but just if a little bit more broad, because there might be more incentives than just financial, and there are already a lot of programs and opportunities out there, so that might be good to incorporate this into this goal to kind of help landowners understand what exists, help facilitate them working with that, whether it's like the purchase of development rights program. Do they even know it's available? Do they know how to get that information and consider participating in that program? There's other forest legacy, there's lots of different things. So just having this just be a little more overarching and include other, maybe to just try and consider other things than just strictly financial incentives that might encourage better behavior.
Do you have a suggestion for, so in place of implementing financial incentives, is there something else that could be there that would be more broad?
Just take out financial.
Yeah, that's
that would
too.
Okay. Any objections to removing financial and just having incentives? I see Brandy's hand. Brandy?
No objection. I just like the more expansive territory of the suggestion, which is to inform and provide access to. So I think there's both a marketing as well as an implementation element to this goal statement. So.
Thanks, Brandy. Tom?
Yeah, I was just thinking that we were kicking around incentives. I think we put in financial because more regulation could be an incentive for stewardship, couldn't it? Couldn't it be a negative incentive?
We're getting down the objective level again.
Yeah, I think what exactly those incentives would be and what that would look like would be covered in the objectives and actions, Tom, to clarify that. So as long as this is not, specifying those disincentives, I guess, or what you're referring to, are you okay with this as written?
Sure.
Okay. Any other concerns or suggested edits to this goal statement? Brandy?
I just want to, I'm not sure where it's being edited. I can't see it, but I just want to make sure that the suggestion to add the word coordination is in there, and also informing and providing access to. So they're cool.
Can you
Sorry?
see the screen, Brandy?
I can. There's a lot of stuff over the top of the box, people's icons and stuff like that.
We're gonna zoom in. Does that help?
Yeah, so local government and partners, other partners and stakeholders are coordinating and to implement and provide access to and implement incentives for it, something like that. That's what I get from the friendly amendment that was suggested. That they're coordinating to implement, or coordinating to provide access and implement.
Sorry, I think someone is editing and I'm not able to edit while they are. So I'm just going to. Local government.
Local governments, other partners and other partners and stakeholders are coordinating to provide access to and implement incentives for forest land stewardship and forest cover retention.
Okay, so are coordinating to implement incentives?
To provide access to and implement incentives.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. And I think that we'll get at Jen's comment, because this is really talking about the coordination piece, and the stewardship and land use subcommittee is like a riff off of this. Maybe you don't agree, Jen, but that's what I would think.
No, yeah, I've been raising my hand a while to say the same thing. So totally agree with the focusing this one on coordination. And then that gets really more specific on the stewardship and land use of the implementation incentives of those specific things.
Okay.
So I think that's great.
Perfect. All right, so new goal statement, local government and other partners and stakeholders are coordinating to provide access to and implement incentives for forest land stewardship and forest cover retention. Look good? Everyone in Zoom, look good? Okay. Awesome. We will move that down and bring our discussion to the last draft goal statement in this. Just noting we have 15 more minutes together. Kate needs at least 5 for our wrap up. We're going to do as much as we can and move quickly through these. Next statement, wildland fire emergency response agencies and forest landowners, managers are collaborating, developing and adaptively managing community wildland fire prevention, risk reduction, and emergency response for improved public safety and wildland fire resilience.
And we had it edited this.
I think this is the one from your email, Russ.
Yeah, but there was another, look up the Tom Smith email after that.
Okay.
Because that actually has improved language beyond mine.
So after 11:30 yesterday morning, there was something.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just
Yeah.
this morning, so
Oh, okay.
let me see.
I don't think I have it.
I've
so-
got it now.
Okay.
If you can put that one up on the screen.
You don't get that in here. I think just reading through some of these comments, did we decide to incorporate WUI in the definition of woodland, or should we mention it specifically?
That was me. I just wasn't sure if we were putting that in explicitly or not. No, we had a discussion. I didn't know if we decided it.
Seemed like there was a sense that wildland included the wildland urban interface based on the current definition. We can call out the specific definitions later in the document.
That would go in the definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine for definition.
Okay,
You
so
have the,
Russ, is this the more updated definition? This is what I have from this morning.
just a minute here. See if I can find.
And then I'm just noting the other comments. I believe this comment is related to this definition.
So this is, I can read it and see if this is one you see there.
Okay.
Wildland fire management entities and service providers are collaborating, developing, and adaptively managing community wildfire prevention planning and services for improved community wildfire resilience and public safety with increased landowner and neighborhood wildfire risk reduction activities. You see that one on there?
It's not on here. I don't
So,
have it.
so
but we
you,
can
it
add
should be on your email. Are you
copy and paste it
from
and put it
Tom
into
Smith?
here, Russ?
Is this the same?
Yeah.
It's literally off the chart. It's at the top of the screen above the chart.
Oh, I see it. Literally off of the chart.
Oh,
I get
okay.
it.
Sorry. This
Okay.
guy?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Steve.
No, but that's not, no, that's the earlier one. That one's not, that's not quite the wording either, so.
Okay,
um,
well, maybe, yeah, well, Russ,
You can
let's,
just quickly type.
yeah, I'll type
Why
that
don't you
in.
just
Go
type
ahead,
it?
Jen.
I was
Just
saying,
that
maybe
it's
we
the
can just move
bottom.
on to the next one and come back. to
Yeah,
this, since
let's
it's
come
like
back to
10 minutes
this,
till.
and I'll get this on here, Russ, and we'll come back to it once we get the exact language. Let's move on to the two goal statements for forest industry and economics that we haven't touched on. The first is sustain a thriving timber industry, working forest land base, and associated economic benefits. I believe the edit here, suggested edit here, has to do with the future state statement. Brandy, I think that was your comment for some of the other goal statements. I see a thumbs up, perfect. Are there any other concerns with this goal statement as written? Any other proposed edits? Looks good. All right, excellent. We can put that in the ready for approval bucket. Next one, looks like we have some comments. Okay, provide robust recreation opportunities that deliver economic and health benefits to local communities. I see two associated comments other than the future state. Add ecosystem services benefits. So we've got economic and health. Should we add ecosystem services to the list of benefits?
I think we had a separate goal that tackled the ecosystem
Okay.
that was already adopted.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
This is Steve. There was an email exchange this morning of Frank and I think it was Tom, saying that we have to take into account the fact that there's a lot of recreation that is extremely harmful to the forest system, including a lot of four-wheeling, even mountain bikes are fine in some places, but not in others. People cutting wood for recreational purposes and so forth. So that anything dealing with recreation really ought to encompass preventing harmful recreation. And I think Frank's off the call now, right? Frank's not on here anymore, but
Yeah, he just had to
particularly, he's been concerned with that. Several emails I've had from him. We're getting together and talking on Friday, and I think this will be one of the topics we talk about.
Yeah, and our committee, when we talked about this is a goal, but under objectives, we identified that, you know, you have to tell the harmful stuff from the good stuff.
Does that sound okay, Steve, that this is more, that, to your point, those are in more specifics in the objectives? Those distinctions?
Well, I'd say without harm to ecosystems. I would want to add that.
Yeah.
Without harm to ecosystems.
Because I think, you know, ecosystems is one part of Russ. But I think Tom and I were discussing the impact of recreation on wildland fire. And so that's ecosystem, but it's also goes broader than ecosystem. It's you know, public safety, it's forest productivity. And so it's a word that just maybe robust might, you know, a word that I'm not thinking of the quite word.
Well, we have one of the foremost national experts on wildland fire who's kibitzing on this call and not saying anything. And so Dave, could Dave chime in and say whether ecosystems is appropriate here, whether fire is part of ecosystem?
I see a hand from Tom first, so let's see if Tom has a suggestion. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'm just wondering if we could replace robust with appropriate, and then later on in the objectives, describe what that would be.
That's the word I was looking for, Tom.
Okay.
I think that's fine. The robust word came right from the county council in our direction of what we're supposed to be doing. So.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Ding, I can do a little noise with
Yeah.
my hand motion. I think is more kind of a comment to really getting into specifics of objectives. I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is recreation opportunities in specific areas. So I think the word appropriate covers that just fine, and then get into the details of the objectives. And I would actually suggest removing without harm to ecosystems. I don't think that's something that you can just really promise as recreation opportunities. And I think the idea is the recreation opportunities is somewhat of a range, but then identifying those specific locations for those opportunities. A proposal.
So here's, and I'm just noting the time. I think this will be the last goal statement that we review. I'd love to end in a place where everyone feels good about it before we go to wrap up the next steps. We'll continue this conversation. Corey, did you have a comment on this?
I was just gonna talk about my comment, sustainably funded
Sure,
and
yeah, go
supported.
ahead.
So, this is Corey. Just, you know, again, questioning whether it needs to go into the statement itself or be like an objective below. But personally, I think that this is so overlooked and something that is so crucial in recreation planning that I would almost argue that it does need to be in the statement, because any recreation development typically does not get the appropriate support and long-term sustainable funding that it takes to get into the bullets what we're going to have under there, which is going to be enforcement, you know, enough law enforcement officers and resources, enough staffing to really manage appropriate recreation. So not sure it needs to go in the statement, but I would tend to argue it should.
You're talking about the ecosystems part?
The sustainably funded.
Just, I would say, provide appropriate and sustainably funded and supported recreational opportunities. I just somehow, some version of that I think is just so crucial, because it's just, in my experience, and I'm sure Jen, you could, I mean, I just don't think it ever gets
the sustainable part, the long-term funding. It's not the upfront shiny thing. It's the long-term thing. That's what always gets lost.
Tom, comment on this?
Yeah, I was just looking to see what group we were in. This is for forest lands. And so I would agree with Corey that if we're looking at lands that are managed by a local government or state agency, that funded and supported would be in there. But if you're talking about recreation on other private landowners, would that need to be written into the goal?
So I think some of the specifics here will get, covered in objectives and actions. And so we're still thinking big picture enough that we don't need to focus on that level of specificity, in my opinion, for these goal statements.
Okay, I agree. So Corey's suggestion is not proposed to be written into the overall goal?
No, the sustainably funded piece is. It in the draft that you see here, I added that in.
Right. I guess I'm wondering if that would be one of those more specific things that would come down
Okay.
in objectives, because I don't think that would apply to a lot of forms of recreation on different landowners.
I see what you're saying. Okay. So you're saying that the sustainably funded wouldn't apply across all. What do you think of that, Corey? Is that
I
something?
mean, I would just say, if you think of Galbraith Tree Farm, it's a private tree farm. There's a lot of hunting, there's a lot of recreation that occurs. You still need DFW enforcement. You need the support of the county sheriff's office, which most private forest landowners will tell you, they are understaffed. They can barely keep up with what's going on down in the valley bottom. So, I don't know. But Jen had a suggestion, I think, just saying sustainably supported and taking out the funding and just say it more generally. Either way, like I said, I could agree with you, Tom, as long as we make sure that we cover it down below and are very specific about that.
Yeah, I see your point. I'm good with that.
Great suggestions, great dialogue. Do we feel like we can live with this goal statement as written? Feel good and move this and that? Okay. Well, since we have 1 minute remaining, I want to try to keep us on time. Kate needs, maybe a little bit more than that if we can hang in there for a couple extra minutes. Let's just quickly scroll through and see, because that was actually a really great amount of work we just did to come to agreement on 9 of the goal statements. So if you see on the screen there, those 9 we talked through and agreed that as written, those look good. I leave it to you all. I defer to you all how you want to go through the approval process of these. If you want to wait until we make it all through, or if you feel like it would be helpful to make a motion related to these 9 that you see on the screen.
I move that the group approves the 9 that we've already approved.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Sorry, I have a friendly amendment.
Go ahead, Brandy.
Just that the motion notes that, that with some further non-substantial syntax revision. I'm not sure how to word that, but just it's approved, but with some additional wordsmithing or something like that. That's not substantive.
Yeah, I'll accept that. I think we realize that wordsmithing might happen.
Steve, your second still stand?
Yes.
Okay, so Nicole, all those in favor with the goals as written, subject to some minor wordsmithing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, nice work, everybody. Kate, you want to close us out?
Melanie, do we want to speak to
Next steps.
next steps in terms of this activity?
Yeah, we will review what you all have shared in the mural related to the goals that still need some finessing. If we feel like we can make some progress before our next meeting in proposing alternative language without losing any of the original, meaning and spirit, we'll do that so that we can send those around for your review before the next meeting. But we'll come back and discuss these final draft goal statements in January. We'd also like to begin the discussion on the draft objectives. So hopefully the final discussion on these remaining goal statements won't take up too much of our time at our next meeting.
Yeah, just really briefly, right? Feel free, folks in the room, to start packing your bags as I just quickly run through what we're aiming to accomplish in the next couple of months. To Melanie's point, we'll be working on the objectives next. Now that we have some approved goals, we'll finalize the remaining goals at our next meeting, which is January 13th. We will not be meeting, this room will continue to remain as an opportunity for folks to meet in person. Melanie and I will be joining virtually. So we'll have more instructions coming your way about the objective statements, but our intention is to have you all meet as a subcommittee again at least once before January 13th to make progress on the objectives. I know you all have already started doing that, so we're hoping that you have kind of a foundation to work off of and can submit revised objectives that you're happy with before January 13th so that folks can have time to review them. And then just flagging kind of the two other things. You all received the link to the community survey last week. I'll probably shoot around a reminder email, maybe at the end of this week, certainly before the holidays. And we're just asking you all to kind of pass that along to your networks. You'll see that I included some, just some language that if it's useful for your organization or folks in your network, you can kind of hand off, like, here's a little blurb kind of thing. That's obviously up to you whether or not you use it. Just trying to make your life a little easier. And then the final piece, I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, is just that we are working on the draft outline, noting that you all submitted revisions kind of earlier this fall, and then we got a little pulled into our goal discussion, but we didn't lose that thread. We'll be picking it up and we'll be sending out a revised outline either January or February for you all to take another look at. So thank you all for your time and for extending this meeting.
Question. Going forward, who is responsible for scheduling subcommittees? Because I know last time it was
I'm gonna send out doodles to set up just recurring meetings, so we don't have to doodle every month. So I'll get those out today probably.
Okay, so you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Any other quick questions? All right, thanks, folks.
Okay.
Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. And thanks for the great discussion.
We are adjourned. Have a good day.
Good work. Thank you.